It always prepares to live stream, and then it's usually live before I'm able to even pause it. Done. All right, there's that. I'm going to share it, copy it, and then send a message.
I can see it. I had it pulled up on my phone.
It's live now. All right, it's being sent to 100 people. I'm going to put it over here. Okay.
Our basement's freezing, so I'm like, thinking
Oh.
of a blanket. Always cold down here.
Okay. It just came up on my phone. So we are officially live, and I have my chat up here pulled up so I can see if people are joining. Let me refresh it just to make sure. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So we do have some people watching. Denise is on there. Hello, Denise. Okay. They should be able to hear us. So we are good. All right. As you guys can see, hello, Yvonne. We have Mrs. Holly Robinson here as my special guest tonight. And she had actually texted me. Hey, Kirsten. She had actually texted me, I don't know, like a month ago. And she's like, hey, you need to do a postpartum segment and talk about this. And I was like, okay, how about coming on and talking about it with me? So she was like, well, I feel like I need it because how many weeks are you pregnant now?
32.
Okay, so not too much longer. Hey, Cassie, Amber. Yeah. Oh, Melissa's having her baby in 2 weeks, so this will be good for her.
I keep joking. Everybody asks when I'm due, and all my babies come early. They have. And I'm like, this time, who knows? He'll probably be like 2 weeks late. He'll like surprise me. I'm like thinking I'm going to go early, and then he'll be like totally different and come late.
What's your average?
So Clara was like 10 days early, so not super early. Anna was a month early.
Oh, wow.
And then Emma was like 2.5 weeks early.
It's like exactly mine. Mine are usually, my average is 10 days. So almost, I think about 6 of them were born exactly 10 days early. And then I've got one that was born a month early, one that was born 3 weeks early. So I always go, I've never made a due date. So never. But we're going to talk about a lot of stuff postpartum. I also had a woman message me, and she kind of wanted to talk leading into it. We'll talk about postpartum too, but she wanted us to talk about what if you're fearful about your labor and delivery. And then also she had, her last baby was posterior. And I know exactly. Have you ever had a posterior?
I haven't.
I've had 2, and it was awful. I'm telling you, my posterior bursts were worse than my breech baby. So I pushed longer. I pushed about 2 hours with each one. It was very, very intense. So she was talking about, you know, how do you overcome your fears going into birth? And then also, what can you do as far as positioning? And I have a few ideas, but what do you think is the best way to prepare yourself mentally when you're going into birth?
So I've been really fortunate because I've never had a breech baby or posterior. I've never had a C-section. So I can't really talk about recovery or anything from that standpoint. But from like preparing mentally, it's a huge mental, I don't want to say game, but it's definitely very mental for me. And I always have, I don't want to say a lot of fears, but a lot of just worries and anxieties about what could possibly go wrong. And I think part of that stems from because I work in a hospital, and so I see like a lot of really, yeah, I see like a lot of really bad things. So like just this month, which this is super rare, but we've had 3 mothers die.
Oh.
So, and just like really random, like this type of stuff could happen to anybody. Like one lady actually had COVID, and it was like really severe, and she ended up dying. One lady had like anaphylaxis to an iron treatment. And then another lady, they actually don't know what happened to her. She just was in there in labor, and she was stood up and was like, I don't feel good. And basically just went completely unresponsive. So it was like just crazy random stuff that could legitimately happen to anybody. And so I see stuff like that and that freaks me out. So, and people think I'm crazy for doing this, but I like watch tons of videos of like live births just to like get my mind in the zone. And that really helps me. I don't know why. I know some people that freaks them out to watch live births, but I do. I'll watch like tons of YouTube videos of just like people giving birth. And I also will just like mentally prepare myself for like coping mechanisms for pain, because I've also never had an epidural. And it's not that I'm against epidurals, they just really freak me out. I get really bad migraines, and so I've always been really fearful of having spinal headaches after getting an epidural. And it's like a 20% rate of women who have spinal headaches after an epidural, which is pretty high. And 20%.
I didn't realize that. And I've had 8 without an epidural, and I was on the fence with this last one. And the headache, because I'm prone to migraines too. I'm very sensitive to things. And the headache was one thing I didn't realize is that high.
Yeah, it's a 20%. And if you have a true spinal headache from an epidural, it's a lot of times from like a spinal leak, which isn't life-threatening. It's just where they insert the needle, and so you have like a little bit of spinal fluid that's leaking, and there's not treatment for that. I mean, you can go and get a blood patch, but medication doesn't really help. So you can just like take ibuprofen and Tylenol, and it'll make your headache go away, and those can last for months. So I'm like, I just tell myself, even if the pain's really bad, even if it's like 24 hours of severe pain, it's better than months of this excruciating headache. So that's how I like talk myself into dealing with the pain of labor. And I just like watch videos, and then I just like kind of think back to the things that I have done in the past that helped during labor. So for me, before I had my first baby, I was like, I had all these ideas of things that I would do. And I didn't do any of those things. Like I thought that I'd be like, oh, getting in like a warm bath would be really relaxing for me. But I was so hot. I didn't want anything to do with heat. I wanted cold. So I had like ice packs, and now every time I go in, I ask them to bring me a big bucket of ice and lots of cloths, and we like soak them in ice water and like put them all over my neck and around my back. So that's kind of like my coping mechanism for the pain is really basically like ice cold numbing. Heat doesn't work for me, but I know that it works for a lot of other people. But I just kind of like rehash what I've experienced in the past to help me prepare for what's to come. But I know that doesn't always work for everybody.
Yeah, I failed this last time with my mental game. Going into it, there was a lot, we had the whole year was just bad. And I think just things were building, and I didn't just deal with it. And so by the time, and then she was breech forever, and everything was up in the air with that. And we had to do the turn, and the turn was even unknown because we didn't know if it would work. And if it didn't work, then they were going to schedule me for a C-section a week later. So there was a lot of unknowns going into it. So I was a little fearful. My friends helped me through it, my husband and everything. But when I was actually in labor, I think the thing that helped me most was I laid there. I'm the type that, I don't know how you are, but I don't want anyone near me. I don't want anyone talking to me. Don't touch me. My husband was on the other side of the room the whole time.
Actually, the only thing that I don't like people like rubbing me, like trying to console me. Like I don't want that type of touch. But when I'm having, pretty much only when I'm like in transition, I want like counter pressure on my back.
That's exactly what I do. Yeah. I'm in transition, and I asked my husband, he had been on the other side of the room, and I'm like, can you please come here and rub my back? So he came over, rubbed my back like maybe 1 minute and I was ready to push. So that was the only, I just want to be left alone. But I kind of just laid there and I focused and I was thinking, you can get through this contraction. You know, I'm just kind of taking each contraction as it came. And it was my easiest labor and delivery. So I had nothing to be afraid about. All those fears, and I had nothing. It was my easiest. And I had asked my husband before the pain even got bad, I said, should I get an epidural? And he said, well, you know, your pain only lasts for a little bit and then they're here. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. I won't get one. And so then, and then later on, the nurse told me, she's like, I know you were going back and forth about getting one, but I'm so glad you didn't, because I've seen the recovery of women who get epidurals and it's so much harder.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, epidurals can be amazing for some people, especially like people that might have weird positioning. Well, not the mother, but if the baby's in a weird position or if they're in like a really prolonged labor, it can give the mom a break to kind of regain some energy. So they definitely have their place. But for me, I like to go in mentally prepare that I'm not getting one. And that just helps me cope. If I go in and I'm like wishy-washy about it, then I have a harder time coping with the pain. But if I go in like, okay, this isn't even an option and this is what I'm going to do, then I deal with it better. But something else, I think it's important to acknowledge your fears and acknowledge your anxieties and talk about it, whether it's to your husband. I definitely think you should talk about it to your husband. But then just like anybody else, another mother or a friend, because if you hold all that in, it's going to be a lot worse. But if you talk about it, it really helps.
amen. I agree with that, because that's what got me through. My friends, talking to them about my fears and them, you know, encouraging me and praying for me. And I could feel the prayers too
Yeah.
of everyone when I went into labor. Joyce asked, so does it get easier with each one? No.
I actually think my anxiety is like more with each one. And this is only number 4 for me.
Number 8 was my worst with anxiety. I'm telling you, I think because I've almost been through every scenario. I've been through the breech, having a breech. I've been through the posterior. I've been through the episiotomies. I've been through the tearing. I've been through all of it, like every scenario. So I don't think it does.
So my first time, I didn't really know what the pain was going to be like.
Yeah.
But then with my second and third, I knew what was coming. So I'm like, I already know what this is going to be like, and it's not very pleasant. It's really painful. So I like had that. I knew what was coming from a standpoint. So, and then you just don't know, like just because you had an easy labor one time doesn't mean it's going to be easy the next, and vice versa. You can have a really horrible labor one time, and the next time it could be completely different.
Yeah, all of mine have been different. But as far as positioning posterior babies, there are certain things you can do, which I did with my last 2. But I mean, we still had to have the ECV with the breech baby. So, but you don't want to lean back a lot. Posterior babies, they like to fall, you know, back. When you're leaning back a lot, lounging a lot, then that's kind of when they fall into the posterior position. You want to lean forward a lot. You want to walk a lot. You want to be on your feet a lot. You want to mop your floors on your hands and knees. I know it sounds silly, but it works because gravity kind of turns them to where they're lined up. And there are spinning babies techniques that you can do for posterior babies as well. And if you have a skilled midwife or doctor, they can feel just by, they can feel what position your baby's in, if it's posterior or, you know, anterior or facing the right way, all that. So I don't know. Have you ever even had a baby that was in the bad position that you had to kind of work with?
No, I've been really fortunate.
Okay. It's harder to hear me, they said. I am talking kind of quiet. I'll go to my settings and turn my volume up a little bit. All right, let me see. Microphone. All right. Yep. Okay, my volume was kind of low, so I'll turn it up. There we go. Hopefully it's easier. Amanda said standing on your head. I don't know if you can do that when you're 9 months pregnant, but I don't know about that. Okay, so let's go into some of the postpartum stuff. Did you have anything that you wanted to add as far as the, before you go into labor and delivery?
I don't think so. Other than like, um, I don't know if you've ever done this, but for first time moms, I really thought that the like birthing classes were helpful, especially for Jason. I mean, it was helpful for me because like and you can like Google all this stuff. I don't even know if they have this stuff now with COVID, who knows. But like
Probably virtual classes.
yeah, but just like really learning exactly what your body's going through and learning the phases of labor, like in detail. And that really helped me because I could like mentally visualize what my body was going through. And that really helped, like, okay, I think I'm probably at this point in labor. And then once I get through this, I only have this part of labor left. So that was really helpful. And something else, like preparing for labor, I didn't really realize before my first exactly what was like after your baby's born, you're still in labor and you still have to deliver the placenta.
Right.
So that was something that I learned like during my birthing classes before I had Clara. I was like, oh, okay. So that could like really freak you out if you go into it and you have no idea that that's going to happen and that you're still going to have contractions and you're still going to be like birthing this large placenta.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
just like really educate yourself. That's one of my major tips for people that have never, for like first time moms.
Right. And they have
And if you
so
didn't do
many
that,
like YouTube things now.
yeah,
YouTube, the internet, all that stuff wasn't really that big when I was my early years having babies. So it was like what to expect when you're expecting, books like that, which I
Mhm.
read from cover to cover. But yeah, definitely even just get advice from other moms. Ask what it's going to be like. We did do one of the birthing classes and my husband absolutely hated it and still talks about how it traumatized him.
I
So
don't think Jason enjoyed it, but I think that it was good for him to know like what I was going through. And it
yeah,
really helps them understand, like, I don't think men really fully grasp
no.
what women are going through. And so the more that they can like just be aware and educate, I think the better they'll be for their wives during labor and then during recovery.
Right. Well, especially during recovery. And that's why I like shows like this. And some husbands even watch this with their wives. So if they're hearing us talk about it, maybe it'll make them more aware of what's to come and how to help their wife through it. So,
Yeah, for sure.
because in the postpartum period, let's be honest, a woman's hormones and emotions are all over the place.
Yeah.
She's going to need a lot of extra love and attention during that time, for sure. At least for me, the first month is a doozy. At least the first 2 weeks are the worst for me, though. So
Mine have varied. Um, like with Clara, I I had like emotional ups and downs, hormone type stuff, but it wasn't that bad. With Anna, it was like really severe right after she was born. And then with Emma, I was like, okay, because Anna caught me off guard, my like how severe my postpartum. I don't know if I would guess I'd probably classify it as postpartum depression, but it was like really severe. And that really caught me off guard because I didn't have that with after Clara. And then with Emma, I was like, okay, I know that this is probably coming. So I was like mentally preparing. And so the first like 2 months weren't bad at all. And then like the third month, it just like hit out of nowhere. So it doesn't always happen like right after birth. It can happen later on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of unexpected for me.
For me, it's kind of built with each one. It's gotten worse. And then
I would agree with that for mine too.
yes, I didn't even remember my first three. I didn't have anything. Um Even in the first few days, I don't remember ever having any of it. And I dealt with a lot of jaundice with my babies. One of them had to be on a light. So I was like taking him into the hospital for blood draws every other day. And it didn't faze me. at all. And then I don't know if it's just having 6 girls in a row. I know with emotions and hormones, I know with me, it kind of builds every girl I have.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was really bad this last time, but we're all good now. See, now that she's almost 3 months, I finally feel like it's evened out. My hormones and things have evened out. Now, could something pop up in the next few months? Probably, but I know how to look for those things and be aware now that I've been through it. So
Yeah. And that's not something that I had ever, like I had never dealt with any type of anxiety or depression or anything like that
no, I
prior
hadn't.
to
Mhm.
postpartum. And I'm not a really emotional person. So
Same here.
that like really threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
But now that I've experienced it, I kind of know what to expect. And yeah. But I feel like postpartum depression is something that is more talked about now than what it was in the past.
Mhm.
I feel like in the past it was kind of like brushed under the rug and nobody wanted to talk about it or acknowledge it. But I think it's really important to acknowledge it, talk
Mhm.
about it. I think that mothers need to be aware that I don't want to say it's normal, but it's common.
Mhm. Yeah.
And there's lots of different things you can do from, non-medication all the way up to medication if you need it. And people shouldn't feel ashamed if they have postpartum depression because it's not like you can't control that. You have no control over that. It's
Exactly.
just your hormones going berserk.
Yeah, it is. I know. We were talking about this topic last night. Me and my kids, my husband, and my son, my 19-year-old son, is like, it just doesn't make sense because here you are, you carried this baby for 9 months and you finally have the baby. You should be happy. The baby's here. You're all done with the pregnancy. And I'm like, I know it doesn't make sense, but it happens.
And like, I know for me, like you have all these crazy thoughts and you're like, why am I like, for me, I was like recognizing that I was thinking like really crazy stuff. I'm like, why am I thinking this? This is not anything I would ever think about. These are not feelings that I would normally have. And so, a lot of mothers most of the time can recognize that what they're feeling is not normal and what they're feeling is crazy for them. And it's not like we want to feel that way. It's just
Right.
just happens.
Yep. And my husband, he didn't really quite understand it. The first time it ever hit me was with Allie. So, I mean, this is like 5 kids into it.
Yeah.
And he didn't really get what was going on. And so I feel like now he's a lot more compassionate, than he was back then, being younger, not really he's just like, just snap out of it. What's wrong with you? He didn't understand. Now he knows, okay, in the first few months, she's going to be very fragile. She's not going to be like her normal Cassandra self, because normally I'm very, very, I'm like you. I'm not emotional, just very even killed. So he kind of knows that I need a little bit more gentleness.
Yeah.
In the
And
first.
it's like the weirdest things would just trigger me.
Mm-hmm.
Like no reason. And I'd be like, I would just like randomly cry and that would like freak me out because I don't normally cry. Like I never cry.
Yeah, that's how I am.
I'd be like, why am I crying? What
Yep.
happened? So, yeah, it's just something that I think, even if you've never had postpartum depression and you're expecting like your 10th kid, I don't know, you should be prepared. At least know that it could happen.
Yeah.
And kind of have a plan, like whether it's a support system or like just being open with your husband or having somebody you can confide in, or even just like knowing that you can go and talk to your doctor about it. Like just have a plan.
Yep.
At a time.
And I know doctors are very much more aware now because I had to, after this time, I had to fill out a survey 3 times.
I actually at my last appointment filled out like I'm assuming it's like a pre-survey because it said like, it was called like postpartum depression survey or something like that. And obviously I'm not postpartum yet. So I'm guessing they do like a scale before to see what your baseline is and then after.
And then my midwife also did something new this time. Usually I would just have the baby and then have an appointment 6 weeks later. Well, now they do it. Illinois changed it in all the hospitals here to where now they do it 2 weeks out. Is it 2 or 3 weeks out? And she said it was because they had so many moms that were just having a hard time nursing, like I did with this one, and just
Yeah.
like going through depression, and they really needed to stay more on top of the moms because there had been some bad stuff happening with, moms having severe depression. So they're like, we always focus on the baby, but we decided start focusing on the moms a little bit. So I thought that wasn't a bad thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea because honestly, like a lot of the postpartum struggles you have happen well before 6 weeks.
Yes, they do. Mine all did.
Yeah. So I think that it's
Mm-hmm.
that's an idea to have the moms come in a little bit sooner or at least do a phone call or something.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right. So let's talk about the afterbirth pains.
Yeah. Oh my.
Things I'll never tell you about afterbirth pains.
Yeah, so a couple things with that. They get worse with every kid. At least that's what I've experienced. Um and I like that just made breastfeeding so miserable for me because every time
Breastfeeding.
you're nursing, you get these horrible contractions
Yep.
and they weren't like normal contractions last for like a minute and then you get like this break. But my afterbirth pains, they would like my uterus would just contract and it would stay in this contracted mode the whole time I was nursing. And newborns nurse for like 30, 45 minutes at a time. So you'd be like in this excruciating pain. And I had no idea that that was coming with my first. And it was like tolerable with her. I did actually one day I called Jason to come home from work. I was like, I can't get up right now because they were so bad. And nobody told me about that. I had like no idea that was coming. So in the next several pregnancies and delivery, I knew that was coming. And so I just took ibuprofen and Tylenol around the clock for probably like 2 weeks.
That's how long they last. They last about 2 weeks.
It was awful. So be prepared. No one told me about that.
And it's always too when I'm nursing. Yeah, you're right. And I always knew that the baby had a good latch when I would get those contractions. And it's really, really low. They're very low contractions.
And it's really amazing. I mean, it's like the way that God has created our bodies to naturally, like it does that to help prevent hemorrhage. And it does that to help your uterus go back down. Like breastfeeding naturally does that. So that's like really awesome to think about, but it's not pleasant.
No.
It's not a pleasant experience.
No, it's not. Yeah, I've taken Advil for afterbirth pains. It's so funny. I won't take anything during the actual labor and delivery, but then I'll take medicine for those afterbirth pains. They also have a nasty tasting herbal thing. Some women swear by it. It helped mine. It's called After Ease, I think, and it has a picture of a monkey on it. I don't know. The one I got had it, and you just it's like a tincture and you put it in water, and that really helped take the edge off of it for me. I feel like though maybe my pain tolerance has increased, but I didn't take anything the last 2 for my afterbirth pains. But I remember with my second baby, Jason, I wasn't really prepared for it, and when it hit, I had to go like in a really hot bath. And I just remember like crying in the bathtub because it hurt so bad. And so I don't know, I felt like I deal with it better now than I did back then. But you're right, it does. I don't even remember having them after my first. And then after Jason is when they really started hitting. So
yeah, I had them with Clara, but they were like really mild. It wasn't, I mean, it definitely caught me off guard and they were there, but they like with each one, like Emma's by far has been my worst. So I'm just expecting this time to be even more painful than before.
Yep. I feel like it definitely increased to the point. It kind of topped off though after a while. So I feel like they're all about the same now. But I definitely noticed it more after my second baby for sure.
Yeah.
And then Jenner,
like told me about.
No, I don't remember anyone. I mean, I'm sure I read about it, but I don't remember anyone really ever talking about the afterbirth pains.
Yeah, like I definitely remember people saying like your uterus will contract down until, it gets back to its normal size and or its pre-pregnancy size, and then how breastfeeding can cause contractions, but that was it. It was never really, I was not prepared.
No, I wasn't either. I wasn't prepared either.
Yeah.
What about just general recovery pains? What else are you going to be dealing with?
So, thank goodness I only had like severe tearing with my first. And then after that, I didn't. So my recovery after Clara was a lot harder. One, she was my first, and two, I had no idea what to expect. And like depending on if you deliver in hospital or at home and who is caring for you, whether it's your nurse or your midwife, that can make a huge difference because some nurses are like really good at educating you and they're like, okay, this is what's going on down there and this is what you need to do. And
Right.
some just like assume they just like give you these supplies and then but they don't even tell you, some of them don't even tell you what to do with them or how to use them or what they're for. And I know some mothers that have had home births and they're like, they didn't have anything. Like they weren't given any type of, I don't know, not only like education about what was happening, but like how to treat it, nothing. So that's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
But so like dealing with tearing, like my recovery was a lot harder than when I didn't have tearing.
Yeah.
So
So you're gonna have the stitches and the pain. What was something that you did? I mean, did you even know? I mean, no one knows the pain until you've gone through it.
no,
It's non-describable. And did you even know how to help with it as far as like different salves, or my favorite is frozen witch hazel pads. And no one told me about that until I had Lana. So
yeah, so I actually didn't know about frozen witch hazel pads with Clara, but I'm sure that they would have been super helpful.
yes.
When I was in the hospital, they gave me, and they like gave me these ice pack type pad things.
Okay.
But it was like almost painful. It's so sensitive down there. And they were like, it was just really uncomfortable to wear. And it was like so cold. So they did offer that, but for me, I just couldn't, like anything down there was painful.
Yeah.
So, and that's really hard because just even sitting
Yeah.
was painful, but standing was also painful. So, I definitely was not prepared for that from the standpoint of recovery. But something else that was really hard, just like peeing. I didn't expect, I like actually called my doctor because it was like so incredibly painful. I'm like, what is happening? Why does it hurt so bad when I'm peeing? But it's just like the urine getting into the wound.
Yeah.
So, that was actually probably one of the most painful parts. I mean, sitting was painful, but just going to the bathroom was like
Going to the bathroom. Yes.
extreme. And I would have like severe anxiety to the point where I like wouldn't go to the bathroom. And I would like go, and then when I would go, I would just like cry because it would hurt so bad.
The thing that's always helped me is the Perry bottle with the warm water. And I
Yeah.
put a little bit of essential oil. That saved me. I've used it after every single one. They gave me that with my first. They also did I think it's the lidocaine spray.
Yeah.
With my first, and I used that with my first. That was it though. They only offered it the one time. They don't offer it anymore. You have to bring your own if you're going to use it.
Oh, they still do. I've had dermoplast at all of mine.
Oh, they don't here in Illinois. They only did it the first time. They never have. I mean, I'm sure I could ask for it at the hospital.
Probably.
It's just cheaper to get it off Amazon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Dermoplast was helpful. I didn't, it helped with like, it doesn't last though. It's like instant relief for a short period of time.
Yeah.
Dermoplast spray. I also did sitz baths.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
which were helpful. And you can't wipe
Mm-hmm.
after, and nobody told you, like nobody says that to you. So that's like something else that you just unfortunately have to figure out. But that's what the Perry bottles are for.
Yes.
So yeah, that was luckily though, when I didn't have tearing, I didn't have any of those problems.
Mm-hmm.
I used the Perry bottle some, but it wasn't like essential to my recovery.
Oh, it's been essential for me every single time.
Mhm.
Even if I have stitches or no. I know I'm reading the chat. Jessica said, I'm wary of telling first time moms about after birth experiences because I don't want them to think I'm being negative. But I feel like I do better when I know what's to come.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to like sound like complaining but I definitely like this is a very sensitive topic. But I know like from a first time mom standpoint, I was not prepared and I wished like people would have said so I could have been mentally prepared or at least known like, hey, this is possible that it could come. Like not to give people anxiety, but more like education about what's to come. And I think that can also help with postpartum depression too, because I think one thing that a lot of women like it kicks them into depression is like they don't know that they expect the postpartum period to be like this flowery, happy time. They have their newborn and it's like, I finally have my newborn and everything's wonderful, but they don't realize all these struggles that are coming. And so it just like really throws them for a loop because their experience is completely different than what they were mentally expecting it to be.
Right. And then I feel like too, if you know every scenario that could happen and you're prepared for it, then it's going to help with your expectations. I don't know. I feel like if I have too high of expectations and those expectations aren't met, I have a harder time dealing with it. So if you have low expectations then, and you have this great experience, then, and I don't know, I think it's a generational thing. My mom was a baby boomer and honestly, she did it. It wasn't talked about. When I got married, nothing was really talked about. When I had my first baby, nothing was really talked about. And so I think one thing that's nice for my daughters is, especially as I'm older having babies, is they're kind of seeing what I'm going through. So they mentally know what to prepare for when they have kids of their own someday. And I don't hold back from telling them, I'm going through this or I'm going through that or whatever. So I don't know. I feel like they're going to be better prepared.
Yeah.
Maybe than, I don't know. And I feel like our generation is a little more open about this because we have struggled with it and we want other women to be aware.
Yeah.
Where it was more taboo, like in the baby boomer generation. So.
Yes. I was just like reading about people talking about using the bathroom.
Yeah. Welcome to Gentlyled Sisters. Tonight we're talking about.
So the one thing that saved me, like this, I tell people this and it's really gross, but it saved me, is like not sitting down when you pee, but standing up, like either in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Or
I think every woman's peed in the shower and we just don't talk about it after having a baby.
Because then it doesn't get on your stitches.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you also have like the water rinsing it as at the same time. So it dilutes it so it's not burning. But yeah.
Yeah.
Like I wish somebody would have told me that sooner.
Stuff you have to figure out after you have babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like reading about, I remember hiding in the bathroom bawling while my mother-in-law was visiting downstairs because I needed to have a bowel movement, but I was terrified of tearing the stitches. Aww.
Yes. So that's something else, like a lot of women don't understand the importance of taking like a stool softener and a laxative. Like take them twice a day, every day.
Yeah.
And if you're breastfeeding, that's like it takes all of the water out of your intestines. So you need to either drink tons and tons and tons and tons of water and eat tons and tons and tons and tons of fiber, or just take a stool softener or both.
Yeah.
But yeah, that will help. Like you should do that. Most hospitals that's like pretty much standard.
Standard, yeah.
You give mothers that, but if they don't, like definitely ask for it.
Definitely. Another thing that helps me is the calm, the magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
That really helps a lot. And that helps during pregnancy for me because you know how things kind of slow down during pregnancy. Yeah. And then I took that postpartum as well because that is scary. That first time.
Yeah.
It's very, very scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Magnesium like really makes me sick to my stomach. So I can't.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But it's effective.
It is very effective. So yeah, those are some things that people don't really talk about too much with that, but it's definitely a real issue. All right, breastfeeding struggles. I can relate to this one. Breastfeeding, okay. So there is a single guy here at our church, and he was asking how the baby was doing a few weeks after. I was like, oh, she's doing okay. We finally have the nursing thing down. And he's like, what is it hard? I thought it was natural. I was like, oh, you could tell you're a single guy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's very natural. I feel like breastfeeding is something that both mommy and baby learn together.
Yeah.
And every baby's different, and every baby has different quirks that you have to learn about.
Mm-hmm. So. I will say though, I think the rate, I was reading this recently, of successful breastfeeding, if you put forth the effort and learn about the struggles, it's like 90% of women can successfully breastfeed. Mm-hmm. But there's like a 10% of women that have issues, like maybe they have inverted nipples and they can't, or their baby has like tongue tie, lip tie, which those can be corrected, but that can affect your baby's ability to nurse. Mm-hmm. Or some women legitimately have really poor milk supply. Right. So there are those instances. It's not natural for it's natural. It doesn't come easy for everybody. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people have like guilt about it, but there's no reason. You can't control a lot of those things. There's no reason to feel guilty. Yeah.
It's a huge mom guilt thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And then you feel, I know with Hannah, when I was just about to the point where I was going to give up, I felt rejected by her, like she was rejecting me, because she preferred the bottle over me. I couldn't get her to latch. She just screamed. And so I felt like she was rejecting me. I don't know. And it's stupid. Like, my hormones were all over the place. And I look back now and I probably took things like way too hard when I shouldn't have taken them so hard, but it's just part of the postpartum.
Yeah.
So,
and part of it's like you want to be successful. Mm-hmm. You want to, like, in our minds, I feel like we have, I don't know, I don't want to say negative, but breastfeeding is pushed so much, which I think breastfeeding is amazing and wonderful, but I think it's to the point that it gives mothers anxiety if they're struggling. Mm-hmm. And if you're to the point that you're like having severe anxiety because of breastfeeding, just don't do it. Mm-hmm. Not because that affects the baby. Like when you have anxiety, the baby's going to have anxiety. They're not going to be able to latch. Mm-hmm. Your milk supply will plummet. So it's just not worth it. I don't want to say not worth it, but yeah.
I almost feel like it's not worth it. I don't know. And I almost feel like not even so much, it is pushed in the world too. And I gave birth at a baby-friendly hospital. So they really, really pushed that. Mm-hmm. But even in the Baptist world, look at how much and I remember this was awful, but when I was really, really struggling in the first week or two, I was listening to a sermon by some random pastor, and he was talking about, just what moms go through. And he's like, and if you're feeding the baby right, if you're breastfeeding. And so he said that, and it was like, oh, so are you saying if you're formula feeding, you're not feeding the baby right? And it just, once again, I was overly sensitive, and I'm going through this as, I hear him say this, and it was just like a dart into my heart. When I heard it, because I was tossing around feelings of guilt. And it was actually Susanna, Mrs. Anderson, she was texting me through all of it. And she's like, Cassandra, you have to give up thinking that bottle feeding is somehow a failure. She's like, it's not a failure. You just need to give it up, and you need to stop with the mom guilt. And you need to realize that you're older and your milk might not be the same as when you were in your 20s, and you just need to get over it. And I was like, that's hard love, but you're right.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, sometimes like we can get into this mindset with breastfeeding that like it's breastfeed or nothing.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was.
And that's not, I mean, as much as like breastfeeding is wonderful, and I would like recommend every mother to try to breastfeed if possible, but it's not for everybody.
No.
And like it's really painful. And that is also something I wasn't prepared for, was like how painful it is. And like you see these videos, I don't know, I would watch like these videos about breastfeeding, and I think that's important too, to like educate yourself about breastfeeding before you do it. But so I'd watch these videos, and they're like, if it's hurting, you're not doing it right. If it hurts while you're breastfeeding, like the baby's latch is wrong. That is false.
Yeah, it hurts. And no matter, especially at the beginning, the first week or two, it's very painful, no matter what you do.
Definitely, if the baby has a poor latch, it will cause like trauma to your nipple, and that will hurt worse. But if you just think about like sucking on something multiple hours a day for hours at a time, like that area is going to be extremely raw and tender, and it's not because your baby's doing something wrong. It's because it's just like if you just like rub something for a long period of time, it's going to get sore.
Right.
So that was like a false perception a lot of people have, and even I had when I was feeding Clara. I'm like, I must be doing something wrong because this hurts so bad. But it's not necessarily that you're doing something wrong. And that's like really painful.
Yeah, it's just painful at first. You actually have to build up kind of calluses.
Yeah.
After a month or two. So, and that's another thing. No one prepared me. I was thinking, all the books, the baby should nurse for 10 to 15 minutes on each side and 2 to 3 hours. Okay, cluster feeding is like constant. Those first 6 weeks, I remember telling Sarah, and Sarah, that makes me so sad that you felt embarrassed supplementing. You should not feel embarrassed supplementing here with the bottle when we went to church. No, don't feel embarrassed about that. But I had told Sarah, Mrs. Turner, she's on the chat, I had told her, just be prepared to nurse for like the first 6 weeks. You're just going to be nursing nonstop. And I feel, that's my babies. That's how it's done. But it's good for establishing a milk supply.
Yeah.
And so it was no different. Once she got the hang, I mean, I spent probably even more time this time around because we worked so hard on her latch and getting her to latch and stuff. So I was pretty much tied to the recliner for like 6 weeks, the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that can play into, I know for me, I think that played into part of my like emotional problems after. Like I didn't have this problem with Clara because she was my first child, but with Anna and Emma, especially little kids, like they need you so much. And so you're like tied to this chair feeding baby, and then you have all this other stuff that you feel like needs done. And so I would just like have anxiety about like, I'm not getting my stuff done, or I'm neglecting my other kids, or like they need me so much and I can't give them what they need. So, and part of that is due to breastfeeding because it takes so much time. It's very time consuming. Now, I will say, like, overnight, I feel like it's easier to breastfeed than to bottle feed, but it's not because you don't have to, like, warm up bottles and wash bottles. You don't have to do dishes, and there's no cleaning and heating up and preparing and stuff like that, but it's super time consuming.
Yes, especially those first couple months. I
Yeah.
finally feel like it's getting a little easier now with Hannah because she can go an hour or two now between eating, and she actually likes her passy for comfort more than me. Whereas Kelly was a comfort nurser, and so Kelly was really tough. It was all the time, all the time. Hannah, not as much, as starting to level out, but I do agree. It is a lot of work. It's exhausting.
I would really encourage, somebody mentioned this in the chat,
Mhm,
like if you can get your baby to take a bottle, get
mhm.
them to take a bottle, because I always joke with my husband. The baby would cry and he would just like bring him over to me like, I can't feed him. Like, and so when you have other kids, sometimes your other kids just want mom too. And so if somebody else, whether it's like an older child or a husband or somebody, can just like do one feeding,
Mhm.
or like just long enough for you to like leave the house for an hour or two.
Right. Mhm.
Um, like a lot of people will say like they'll discourage bottles altogether,
Mhm.
because like if you're breastfeeding, just like then they'll stop wanting mom and they'll only want a bottle. I would really encourage you to try to get them to take bottle,
Yep,
because it gives you freedom.
it does. I am very happy. Um, Hannah is taking both right now. So I am
Yeah.
hoping to continue. Abby actually might be giving her one right now, but I'm actually hoping that she will continue to. A lot of times when my babies hit 3 months, they start refusing bottles altogether, and
Yeah.
Hannah's almost to that age. So I'm kind of hoping she'll take both because it is nice. I can leave her when it's really bad outside. It's snowing right now. I don't really want to bring a baby out on that. So so far so good, but we'll see.
I was just looking at people talking about pumping, and pumping is like not fun, but you can get, I would actually recommend for anybody who's breastfeeding to get milk savers, whether you get like the Haka, or however you say it,
Take it time.
that type, or they make these like little tiny, they're like discs that you just
I've
put
seen those.
in. Yeah, you just put in your bra and it just collects, especially in like the first month, like you're constantly leaking, it collects all of that. And you can get like tons of milk saved without even trying. And you can wear them to collect your letdown. Like if you're nursing on one side, you can collect the letdown from the other side. And that was actually something else I was totally unprepared for, was like the letdown and how you're just drenched with milk all the time.
Lancino. I love the Lancino. I wear them the whole time I breastfeed. The Lancino. Um,
Nursing pads.
mm,
Yeah, I do too. I have to wear nursing pads the whole time I'm nursing. Like a lot of women, after their milk regulate, like after the first month or so, they don't have any leaking, or they don't even leak during letdown. But not everybody's like that. I know even Emma was over a year old and I was still having to wear
yep, I do too.
nursing pads.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's something else. My cousin, she breastfed, and she was the only person, when I had Clara, she was the only person that sent me anything related to postpartum. And she sent me like this little package, and it had like a couple nursing tops, milk storage bags, breast pads, and then just like some other miscellaneous. I think it had like nipple cream and different things like that. And I was like, man, I never even thought to get that stuff. But
Hmm.
yeah, I
Yeah,
would definitely get milk savers.
yes, I like those. I have a Haka that I used the first month or so, and I think it helped me get a little milk if I needed to give it to her in a bottle or whatever. But I love for pumps, if you have the option, and I love the hands-free LVs. I don't know. Mrs. Anderson has let me borrow hers, and when it looked like I was going to have to be exclusively pumping and then giving bottles, that would have been a lifesaver, because I felt a pit in my stomach thinking about pumping for months.
Yeah. Pumping is it's like not fun. But if you have insurance, most insurance companies will
They do.
will pay for your pump. It might not be the pump you want,
Hmm.
but they will pay for a pump. They're expensive, but if you have insurance, it will cover a pump. Pretty much every insurance company will cover pumps.
It does. And it's worth it to have, especially in the first few days when you are engorged. If you get engorged.
That's another thing too with just being engorged. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
No,
know
for that.
just even if you don't get an electric pump, at least have a hand pump.
Yes.
Or, I mean, just something to relieve that.
Mm-hmm.
If your baby, the first time they sleep more than like 2 hours and you wake up and you're like in so much pain from engorgement and you need that relief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Because if you don't have some way to relieve that too, you're going to get mastitis. And I've never had it. I've heard it's horrible, but I do.
I've had mastitis.
Ugh.
So there is a significant difference between a clogged duct and mastitis.
Yes.
Mastitis is an actual infection.
Yeah.
A clogged duct is painful, and you can feel you have a knot. You might have like pain, swelling. It'll be hot and tender. But mastitis, you will have like high fevers, chills, body aches. Like you literally feel like you have the flu.
Yeah.
And it is awful.
Yes.
But a lot of people do things. I know that there's like different natural things you can do for mastitis, but again, I think it's because I've been in the hospital. I've seen so many cases of women who don't get it treated, and they have like lost breast tissue, and it's like they get abscesses and they have to have surgery. So it's not like, don't mess around with that. Get it treated.
Yeah, no, I've never had it. I've had clogged ducts, but I'll just use heat, massage, pump a lot, and use some sunflower lecithin, and then they go away. I've never had a fever, any of that. Had the red streak, or I don't ever want to.
No. And like, I would not recommend messing around with it.
Yeah,
I would have that treated right away.
Not either, for sure. But there's so much more on the list. I don't even know if we'll get through all of them, but there is so many things that go into breastfeeding. We could do a whole show about just breastfeeding. But lack of sleep, oh my stars. I don't know how we survive on like 2 hours of sleep. I really don't, but we do.
Yeah. I think lack of sleep really plays into a lot of things. It plays into like emotional problems. It plays into, like we have on here, struggle with like relationships with your husband and family and friends. And
definitely,
you don't have like I don't even remember. Somebody recently was like, how do moms function? And it's like, we don't have a choice. It's like survival mode. You just do what you have to do. But and it doesn't even matter if you're bottle feeding or breastfeeding, your baby's going to need to eat and they'll wake up. And so you're going to have really limited sleep. And I know like there's the old saying, like, sleep when your baby sleeps, but that's like not.
No, I never do.
You might be able to rest a little bit, but like, especially with other kids, like, good luck.
No, there's no way, not especially during the day when everyone's up. And then you've got, okay, so the baby's sleeping. I have laundry that needs to be done. I have to do this. I have to do that. I want to eat. So I need to make food, and it's easier once you get older kids, but
yeah. I do recommend if you have multiple kids, like get them all on the same schedule.
Nap schedule.
Like nap schedule or quiet time. Like be really strict about sleep, because your kids don't sleep, you don't sleep. And I know a lot of people, they'll be like, my kids just won't sleep. They might not sleep, but you can force them to stay in their room.
Yes, you need a breather.
Yeah,
for sure.
So get all your kids on the same schedule, babies, toddlers, older kids, and that'll significantly help with your sleep.
And when you've got little toddlers, you can put them to bed at 7.
Yeah, put them to bed early.
Mm-hmm.
I posted this thing on Facebook. I like follow the sleep coach on Facebook, and I like shared her post. And one of my friends was like, if I put my kid to bed early, he'd be up at 1 a.m. And Some kids like don't require as much sleep, but from my experience, the earlier I put my kids to bed, the longer they sleep and the better they sleep.
Better they sleep. Yep. No, Kelly's awful. And last night she didn't have a nap the whole day. Yesterday we were at church the whole day. She didn't have a nap. And so I thought, well, maybe she'll sleep better. No, last night was
Mm-mm.
awful. She was up half the night screaming, and it's because her sleep cycle was messed up.
Yep.
Oh, Kelly.
It can take a while to get a good routine, but don't give up. Like start early. Like you can start getting little babies on a good routine.
Oh, I learned my lesson with Kelly. I'm already doing things differently with Hannah, and Hannah sleeps better than Kelly.
Yeah.
My 2-month-old sleeps better than my 24-month-old. It's pretty sad. But I put her to bed even at night in her little co-sleeper. I lay her down kind of a little awake so that she's learning to fall asleep on her. I do. Oh, yeah. Karen, did you see what Karen said? The only thing I miss being off of Instagram is Holly's recipe stories. I love her recipe stories, and I've made most of them.
One recently. It's been a little while. I have to do one.
Get out. But yeah, just the lack of sleep. My son was talking about how he liked it when I first had Kelly or Hannah, because I was trying to get her to nurse. So I would come out and sit in the recliner, and he sleeps in the living room. And he said I was always there awake to talk to when he was getting ready for work in the morning. And I was like, oh, that's sweet that you liked talking to me in the morning. But I'm like, but she's sleeping better now, so I'm going to be sleeping.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. But
The
yeah.
other thing too, with sleep, if you have other kids, is like, I think sometimes moms feel like we have to do everything with the kids. And like it's not our husband's job but parenting is like a joint effort, especially when you have a bunch of little kids. Like,
Oh yeah.
just because we're like keepers at home and we're raising our children, that doesn't mean our husbands aren't raising the children as well. And so, if you can get your husband involved, especially like with bedtime, that can be like such a huge help with you getting sleep. Or if he's willing to, like get up, like if you have other kids that get up at night, like my toddlers, they still will wake up at night and need things like help with using the bathroom or need their socks put back on, or, little things. Like if he's willing to help with that, just be open, be like, I really need help. Like I need sleep. And a lot of moms will be like, well, my husband works and I'm home all day, so I feel guilty asking him to help. Well, you're working too, and you need sleep too. So it's not selfish, and it's not wrong to like go to your husband and ask for help.
Yeah, you need to recharge too. You cannot continue to live on empty or function on empty. When we had little kids, my husband always put them to bed every night. So he'd read them a story or tell a Bible story, pray with them, and put them to bed every night. That was just the thing he did. And then he would also help bathe them too as well, because baths are a big deal. It's a lot of work when you got a lot of little kids and getting them dressed, and I'd lay out the clothes and he would get them dressed. So, obviously now we have older kids that kind of help out when it comes to that. But when you have younger kids, definitely ask for help. That is a good, very, very good tip.
And I mean, I totally get it. Like your husbands are at work, but don't belittle what you're doing at home.
Mm-hmm.
You're working too. It might not be like a secular job, but what you do at home is really labor intensive, really exhausting. So you need it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Definitely. All right, so let's go to relationship things. Yes, it's going to be tough. Remember that it's a season.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think if your husband understands that, then that will help a lot. And I feel like men really, men do learn this, unless you're just married to a complete jerk. He's going to be You know, he's going to be gentle with you and realize that it is a season and the baby requires a lot of time. But just remember, it's going to eventually even out.
It'll
So,
get better. Yeah, and just with relationships too, like there's a physical aspect and there's an emotional aspect.
mhm.
And I think it's so important to be open with your husband about everything, everything you're going through. And I'm not saying like just complain to him all the time and wear him down with complaints, but he needs to have a good understanding of like your needs and emotional issues, and especially like recovery time. Like some women require significantly more recovery time. So, and men don't always really understand exactly what you're going through. And they might not want to hear the details of what you're going through, but um, it's important that they know, because I think like you don't want your husband to start feeling bitter towards you, or like not understanding, like feeling rejected or not understanding. But if they know like the pain, physical pain that you're going through, or like you just need time to heal, or and then especially like the emotional stuff that you're going through too. It can be really hard on them because they don't, men, I feel like you have to just like tell them. They
Yeah,
don't know.
you have
They
to.
have no idea.
Yeah. And you've got the same personality like I do. So I'm not one that beats around the bush. In fact, you know, all these funny memes I see about, you know, a guy asks a woman what's wrong and she's like, nothing, you know, I'm fine. That's not me. If my husband asks me what's wrong, I'm going to tell him what's wrong. And so there was a couple times, even after Hannah, where I would call him up. It would be maybe earlier than he would normally come home, you know, 3 o'clock. And I'd say, can you please come home? I really need you. And so he would come home. And honestly, I just wanted to like lay, you know, just cuddle, just be next to him, be touching him. He'd sit on the couch and I would just have to be near him. I was just very fragile.
So
So,
like with me, I get like touched out,
mhm.
where I like this was happening today. I'm like, I don't want to be touched. I'm like, the dogs are touching me, the kids are touching me, everybody's touching me. And that happens a lot postpartum. Like I just feel like somebody's always on me, and that kind of like overwhelms me.
Mhm.
So you can like it's okay to express that to your husband. Like I'm feeling really overwhelmed by touch. Like
Right,
just maybe don't touch me right now.
right. Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah, but
and
postpartum
everyone's different.
relationships, yeah, and postpartum relationships, it's hard, and it's like it can be different every child that you have too. So just like my main recommendation is know that it's possibly going to be a struggle, and don't be afraid to ask for help and talk to your husband. Like be open with your husband. Let
Mhm.
him know what you're going through.
Yeah, don't bottle it all up, you know, because it will catch up. Overbearing family or lack of support. So it can be either or,
Yeah.
you know.
I when Anna was born, our parents were always like super excited, you know,
Mhm.
to go to the hospital. And after Anna was born, they were like all in the hospital room immediately.
Mm.
Like they hadn't even wiped her down, and
Oh,
they
wow.
in the room. And so I felt like super overwhelmed, and they were like just like loving, you know, they wanted to be there and see their grandchild. So Jason and I talked about it. So when Emma was born, it's not that we didn't tell them, but I just needed like people to back off a
Mhm.
little bit. And it's okay to ask for that. Like, don't feel guilty. If you need space, ask for space.
Mhm.
But also, if you need help, ask for help.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, and if you feel like you're not going to have support from family, like you don't have family or whatever, it's really important to like try to build yourself a support group, or people like outside of family who you can trust to help you.
Mhm.
Like don't feel guilty or bad or anything for asking for help. And if you have good friends, like good church families, like nobody's going to judge you if they go to your house and it's messy, or
No
if you
judgment.
need help like making food or doing laundry, or like it's okay to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. And some women are different. Some women prefer that their husband take the kids and leave them alone for a while. Some,
Yeah.
with me, my anxiety, I don't know, I didn't want to be alone. So, there was a couple of times when my family would leave for church, that's when it would really bother me. And so I would have Chloe stay home with me or have Abby stay home with me, or, I just needed someone there. And rather than just suffering through it and not wanting to tell him, I would be like, listen, Chloe needs to stay home tonight with me, or
Yeah.
Abby needs to be here with me, so just, I don't know, just, yeah, acknowledge that you're having these feelings and ask for help if you need it.
Yeah. Yep. And I feel like, especially like the more kids you have, I feel like your family they like back off just because
Yeah, they do.
so it gets a little bit better, but,
Yeah.
from that can also be hard because like with our first, I know like everybody was like super willing to help.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the second and third, when I felt like I needed more help, everybody was like, "Oh, you got this. Like you have to,
Uh,
like it's just
it's
like no
harder.
big deal." No big deal. And I'm like, this is probably like I could have used more help
Mm-hmm.
with my second and third and probably this time than I with Clara for sure. But that's when everybody's like showering you with, "Oh, you're a new mom," and they shower you with all kinds of love and gifts and but it's like so don't feel bad about asking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Now, have you had sibling? Now, I have noticed this with some of my kids, behavioral issues, regressions. I've
Yeah.
had some potty trained, and then I had a baby and they regressed. Um,
Yes.
yeah, needing more attention. Their eating, definitely. I have noticed that with mine, with a couple, and it shows up in little things like that. Not
Mhm.
so much something that is, obviously little kids, they can't really explain to you how they're feeling. So
Yeah.
that's why it shows up in those things. So just having more patience and grace for sure, realizing that it's a big change for them too.
Yeah, I would be really surprised if older siblings didn't have some type of change in their behavior. And it
Mhm,
might be like really mild, but I would be like shocked if they didn't have some type of change. And I know like that can be really frustrating. You're like, why are you doing like why aren't you sleeping? Or why aren't you eating now? But um or why have you all of a sudden stopped using the potty?
right.
But, most likely, like, even little kids can recognize
Mm,
change or recognize like, I can tell even with Emma, like, she's been super clingy recently, and they just know something's different. They can just tell. They can't verbalize it, obviously, like, she's not talking at all, but, like, she knows something
mm,
is changing, something's different. So, yeah, you just have to be extra patient with that and expect it. Expect
yeah,
that you're gonna have some sibling behavior regression or
yeah.
behavior issues.
I know one of the things that's really cute. A lot of times if I'll be sitting there nursing the baby or whatever, and Kelly will come up and she'll tell me, "You have two babies."
Oh,
And then I know she wants to climb up in my lap. So a lot of times I'm nursing while Kelly's sitting, right next to me, but she was so young. She wasn't even 2 when Hannah was born. This is one of our smaller gaps. So I try to just deal with the juggling because I know it's important to her that she needs some time, some attention. And then a lot of times if I give up Hannah to another kid, she'll come running and climb up on my lap, and I know she needs snuggles or whatever. So yeah, her sleep has definitely regressed. She's never been a good sleeper, but I know it's a big adjustment period for her.
yeah. Yeah, it can be really frustrating, but, um, yeah, you kinda just have to accept it and know it's gonna happen.
Exactly. And then the last one, really quickly, I know we're past our time, but car seat safety.
Yeah.
Let's
This is
touch
like,
on that. That can be a big one.
yeah, this is like, I don't want to say near and dear to my heart, but
A pet peeve of yours?
no, not even necessarily a pet peeve, but I feel like it's an area that people don't take seriously,
Mhm.
or maybe they just don't realize it. But like the whole point of a car seat is keep your kids safe,
Mhm.
but it's only going to keep your kids safe if you're using it appropriately.
Right.
So, you can't just like take the car seat to the hospital and never have read the manual and have no idea how to appropriately put your baby in the car seat, like not know where the straps go, like the chest clip has to be at armpit level and that needs to be tight with no gapping. And just like that, making sure the installation of your car seat is appropriate.
Mhm.
Um, like read the manuals, and every car seat's different.
They make it easy too because they have the little thing even on the side that
Yeah.
shows, you know, that ball has to be in the center, and if it's not, then something's not quite right. So,
And I didn't realize this, but like your car, your actual car has a manual that has a whole section on child restraints. And some cars are not like the way that your car seat manual might instruct you to install the car seat might slightly differ based on what kind of car you have. And so it's important, like, don't guess. Look at your car manual and look at your car seat manual and make sure, because some cars, for example, will let a rear facing car seat touch the back of the seat in front of it.
mhm.
Other cars, you can't, that's like a big no-no. You can't do that. So you need to figure that out before you're driving around with this baby in the car.
Right.
And just like little things like this is maybe for older kids too, but like forward facing car seats have a tether strap that you
Mhm.
have to tether. And some cars have specific instructions on how to tether. Some you do like underneath the headrest, some you do around the headrest, some you do over the headrest. And that can affect how efficacious or how safe your car seat will be. Like your car seat might not function appropriately if it's not installed appropriately. So it's just like a really big deal. Something that I didn't necessarily think about, like, oh, we have a car seat, we're good to go. But you need to know how to use the car seat before it's baby time.
Right. And then even with the chest clip, a lot of people do that incorrectly. They'll have it very low. I've kind of shown my girls, like when you put her in, okay, you need to, you know, you need to have it up because they want to have it down lower, but then it's not going to protect the baby, you know, the baby's
Yeah,
organ.
it will cause like one, it might not keep them in the car, but if you're in a wreck and the chest clips below the chest, it will cause internal organ damage.
Right.
But like your chest wall is actually protecting anyway.
Right.
But something else that I did and then later on learned that's a big no-no is like adding extra stuff to the car seat, like adding headrests and adding like little like fuzzy things around the straps to make it more comfortable and different things like that. Those can the headrests can actually cause the baby's airway to be shut off,
Mm.
closed off. It can like affect their position in the car seat,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't know. So I used a headrest, and now I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did that.
I used it with, I don't have anything in Hannah's other than what it came with, you know, than what was in the car seat when I got it.
Yeah, like they make all these cute accessories, but they've never been like tested for safety.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's just something like I see like kids come into the hospital with traumas, and a lot of times it's because they weren't like safely harnesed.
Mm-hmm.
They would have just been safe. Like they were in a car seat, but it wasn't like appropriately used. Like, hi.
You managed to sneak in.
Yeah. Okay, I will. The movie started over. You watched a movie?
Daddy's like, And Brother Jason's like, where'd one of them go? Get a figure.
That's with car seats. Like, I don't know, I just really recommend reading the manual and knowing how to use them. And
that's a good idea. I've not been, I feel like as I've had more kids, I've gotten pickier about that. But with my first ones, I didn't have a clue.
Yeah, and a lot of hospitals, they have like real strict rules. They will not help you because it's like a liability. If they put your baby in the car seat and do it wrong, or if they like instruct you and do it wrong, like they're not car seat experts. They don't get trained in car seats. So like you can't go to the hospital expecting your nurse to show you how to use your car seat because they, from a liability standpoint, won't do it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you can go to, I know sometimes fire stations do car seat safety checks.
Yeah.
You go through and they'll just check to make sure that it's installed correctly. So if you really want to find out how to
get online, there's car seat safety experts, and they'll do like free live, not like free like chats, and you can video chat with them and show them your car seat, and they'll do it for free, like consultations to make sure everything
that's a good idea,
hooked up appropriately and everything. But the other thing too is like your as your kid grows, your car seat needs change. Like when you move them out of an infant seat and to a convertible seat, and just those types of things. Weight limits are different in every seat. It's like a lot of stuff that I didn't know I needed to know.
Right.
And I look back on some of the things I did, and I was like, oh my word, that was not safe.
I know. I feel like we have guardian angels around us sometimes because
and thank goodness we were never in a wreck, but that's like the whole point. You had cool. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
But I always hear like, oh, we survived without car seats. And I'm like, you probably weren't in a really bad car accident either.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot. But all right, I'm going to wrap it up because my baby's at home. She hasn't had a bottle yet. The roads are getting worse. So thank you so much for being on. But if you guys have a question or comment, I'm sure Miss Holly will be checking occasionally and she can answer it. So you can leave it down in the chat. Like this video, share this video. I'll put some kind of title in it for, new moms, something new moms all need to know or, listen to. So, but thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Bye, Holly. Hang on though. I'm going to talk to you after we get off. So you want to say anything else or?
Just thanks for coming on, I guess. I mean.
Yep, no problem. Looks like your natives are getting restless anyway. So. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next. Yeah, we'll see you guys next week. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. So bye.